been a hard-working summer, that's for sure. The staff, we haven't been around much. I know for me personally, I probably put 100,000 miles on airplanes from every corner of the country. Terry just left and Monty just left today. John will be leaving tomorrow. I'm leaving tomorrow again. We're putting some finishing touches on the roster for next year. We're just about done. We lost two players in the draft, two freshmen, Luke Roop and Noah Franklin. We had already kind of recruited in advance of thinking Noah Franklin was going to sign, so we're all set there. But Luke Roop, I don't want to say it was a total surprise, but we have one spot remaining on our pitching staff to fill, so we're still working on that. But most of our attention now is being shifted to the 26 graduating class and 27 graduating class high school kids. And so John Hendry really carried the load most of the summer looking at the young kids because the rest of us, Terry and myself and Chris Gordon and Monty, we were pretty much focused on just putting the roster together for next year, the 26 season. We already had done a lot of work with 26 high school grads. We have, I think 13 commitments already that we had done all fall. Working on that, so had a great head start on the 26 guys, and John was looking at the 27 guys mostly. So that's how it works. You got to get way ahead of it. But we worked really hard on putting this new roster together, and I'm really excited. I think we came out of the draft Sunday and Monday about as well as we possibly could. Very excited. Feel very fortunate. We feel like we've got some good players lined up. It's a rather unique-looking roster, and I'll explain in a moment why I say that. But we, like I said, we were out there really looking at a lot of guys, and unfortunately, we had a head start on our recruiting. Hopefully next year we won't be starting into it as early as we did this year. But I'm excited about our team. I think it's going to be a great group of kids. I feel like we're going to be significantly better next year in some ways, particularly on the pitching staff. We loaded up with some really good arms, some hard throwers, some very established college pitchers that went into the transfer portal, and feel very good about it. So that's my opening statement. I can go over personnel as much as you want. I've got them. I had to bring a cheat sheet because there's so many guys. We only have 10 returning players from last year's team, 4 position players, KJ Scobby, Bo Hollins, Talmadge LaCroix, and Gavin Braylon. And we only have 6 returning pitchers. Jake McCoy, of course, leading the way. Parker Marlott, Zach Russell, Cooper Parks, Brandon Stone, and Riley Goodman. I always forget Riley because he didn't pitch last year. But let me tell you this, Riley looks really good. He pitched for the first time in a competitive game the other day. He had a 25-pitch limit and a 1-inning limit, and he went out and threw a grand total of 5 pitches, 5 strikes. He gave up a single, a double play ball, and a ground out. And then he had to throw his remaining 20 pitches in the bullpen to keep himself on track. Every pitch he threw was 95 to 97 miles an hour. He's going to be special, I think. He's got a chance to be a really good one. And a wonderful kid. He's worked really hard. He's a good athlete. Done everything that he's needed to do in his rehab. So we're excited about having him back. But it also necessitated that we do a lot of recruiting because a lot of holes to fill. When you look at our team from last year, I think we had 9 or 10 seniors that had exhausted their eligibility. We lost 2 to the pro draft, and Nathan Hall and Ethan Petrie. And by the way, just so proud of those 2 guys, happy for them. Ethan was the second pick of the second round. So he should get himself a nice payday and off to a great pro career. And then Nathan Hall, of course, will always be very special to me because he was a kid that didn't play hardly at all his first 2 years at Clemson, came in here and had a terrific year for us, and he went in the 5th round. So real happy for those guys. So we lost, I think, 12 guys, 11 or 12 guys that would have either graduated and exhausted their eligibility or signed into professional baseball. But we had 19 guys going to the transfer portal. And I know that seems like a lot to most people, but just by comparison, I think I have that list right here, actually. I think 25 went into the portal from Tennessee, just to give you an example. Texas had 19, Virginia 16, Kentucky 16, Alabama 13, Arizona State 17. West Virginia 21. I only say that because this is the world we live in now. The kids are bouncing from schools to schools, and everybody loses a lot of players in the transfer portal. Sometimes it's because the kids are looking for greener grass somewhere else. They're maybe not getting an opportunity to play at the first school that they're at. Sometimes it's because they think they can get paid more money at another school. There's a multitude of reasons why it happens, but it's so easy now for a player to change schools. So especially in a transition type of situation like we were in this past year, it's only natural that you're going to end up having some turnover. So I'm not overly concerned with it. There was only a couple of them that that was their choice, and I was a little bit disappointed in. Most of them, it was by kind of mutual agreement, and felt that it was better for all parties concerned. Our transfer portal class, by the way, I don't know if you guys ever look at Analytics 64, but our transfer portal class was ranked 5th in the country. We were only behind Mississippi State, Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas. And then, and those obviously are 4 other SEC schools. So I think some people think pretty highly of the transfer portal group that we brought in. We brought in 16 players out of the transfer portal. We have 6 junior college transfers, and we have maybe the smallest freshman class in my history. We only have 3 freshmen in our class. We obviously just lost the 2 in the draft, but if you want, I'll just go ahead and start talking about the different players, or would you like to ask questions?
Actually ask about the freshmen.
Okay.
Paul, with only 3 freshmen in the class, is there a little bit of concern, for the future? I mean, you had to rebuild this team the way you had to, but just looking ahead saying, well, that's a really small base for the years to come.
I'm really not concerned about it, and I'll tell you why. Because if you think about it logically, okay, I get hired in the summer of 2024. So the previous staff would have recruited the entire freshman class that would be coming in this year, right? So I had nothing to do really with that incoming class. There were, to be honest with you, I can't remember all the names, but there were at least 2 that almost immediately upon Mark leaving, they decommitted. I think before they even knew who the new coach was going to be. Maybe it was shortly after. I don't recall exactly. And then we ended up having a camp where we invited the players that were in the class because we had not seen any of them. And in several of their cases, in consultation with the player, we felt that they would probably have a better chance to play at other schools. And that was just based on evaluation of the personnel and so forth. And so the class, just kept getting a little bit smaller and smaller. There was a couple of academic issues where the kids would not have been eligible. There were various reasons. One kid got in a little bit of trouble, off the field trouble, so we ended up, uninviting him to the program, I guess you could say. So before you know it, we're down to 5. and then the 2 signed. But so the first real freshman class under this coaching staff is really the 26 high school graduates, because that's kind of the timing of how you recruit them, And honestly, I think we have a tremendous freshman class that'll be coming in the fall of 2026 for the 27 season. And like I said, I think we have 13 commitments in that class right now, several very highly touted ones, and we're very confident that they're going to, kind of become the foundation of the program going forward. And we kind of knew that this year's recruiting class was going to have to be top heavy in transfers, because number one, we knew we were going to have a lot of seniors on last year's team, and then just that in a transition there's going to be some turnover because of various reasons. And so it's kind of played out exactly the way I thought it was going to. I'm not overly concerned with this year's team. That this is very typical of a lot of schools, honestly. You're seeing 13 is really like a big class for freshmen nowadays. You're seeing most of the top college baseball programs just relying very heavily on transfer portal.
Hey, Paul, KJ's been playing a lot of shortstop this summer with Blowfish and then Team USA. Is that kind of the plan for him next year? And I guess if so, what kind of went into that decision to maybe move him over to short with how good his defense was at third last year?
Yeah, well, I wish I could just clone him and put one guy at short and one guy at third, because he's as good a defensive player as I think played in the infield last year in this conference. He was outstanding at third base. Again, I had never seen KJ Scobby play until the first day I saw him out here on the field. So I didn't know what we had. But it didn't take very long for me to determine that he needed to play every day just simply because of his defense. And, we had recruited, Henry Kazmar. We had Will Tippett. So we felt pretty confident about the shortstop position, and I don't remember talking to him about it, but the first day we went out on the field, he just kind of ran out to third base. So I thought he was naturally a third baseman because he ran out there without me even really talking to him about it, and he looked so good. You remember we had Nolan Naraki over there in the fall as well, but he clearly was the superior defensive player. And I've always thought third base position was the most underrated position on the field. You really don't notice you don't have a good third baseman until you don't have a good third baseman. And all of a sudden it has a dramatic effect on your team. So I thought that was one area we wouldn't have to worry about. But then as he and I talked and got to know each other throughout the fall and the spring and so forth, I just think very highly of the kid. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's going to continue to improve. I was pushing very hard for him to get an invite to the USA team. They have what they call the Stars versus Stripes. It's kind of like an inter-squad set of games. And then from that, they pick 20 players to go play in their series in Japan. But KJ really wasn't hitting enough to get the invite, and there were a couple of players, specifically shortstops, that were rated higher than he, and then something happened and both of them kind of fell off. So Eric Campbell, the general manager of USA Baseball, who is a very close friend of mine, called me and he said, "Hey, I noticed Scobie's been playing shortstop for the Blowfish. Do you think he could handle playing shortstop for us over with the Stars and Stripes?" And I said, "Absolutely." Because that's something that Scobie and I had been talking about throughout the year, that next year I would like to move him to shortstop. And he was very excited about that because he was naturally a shortstop in high school. And I didn't have any doubt in my mind that he would be able to make the move. And he played terrific over there with the Blowfish. Well, then he ends up going over to the USA team, and he might have been the best player on the field the first 3 days there. The first day he made, I think, 5 plays in the field, of which 4 of them I would say were above average. And he kind of became the talk of the team. And he came about this close to making the 20-man team that went to Japan. But, they're very reluctant to take freshmen. And so for him to make it, he would have had to really do something extraordinary, and he was through 3 games, and then he had a couple of offers, and I think that kind of knocked him out of the mix. But in his final game, he went 3 for 4. But in his first 3 games, he hit a ball off the center field fence. He hit one that looked like it was going to be a home run, but the left fielder pulled it back in. He got 2 hits in another game. He hit a lot of balls hard, and just played great. So in answer to your question, I'm going to look at him he's going to go right to shortstop. And there'll be competition. I mean, we've got a couple of kids, like Eric Parker coming in, Jack Reynolds coming in. I mean, there's going to be other competition out there, but I think Scobie's going to be have a good chance to end up there. I told Scobie, though, that what he has to do is root for somebody really to step up at third base, so I don't have to move him back to third base. And if somebody else emerges and plays really great at third, there's a good chance that Scobie will end up at short.
Your outfielders either went to pro ball or graduated, so you got to replace all 3 guys out there. I'm wondering who you like from the portal is in center, and what you feel in terms of how you recruited the outfield spots.
Yeah, we recruited 5 outfielders, and the first goal that we had was to get more left-handed hitting, and so the first 4 outfielders that we recruited were all left-handed hitters. We recruited a young man by the name of Aaron Jameson. He was a junior college kid. He started out at West Virginia University, was there a year and a half, and they had a coaching transition there. And so in the transition, he ended up leaving West Virginia and ended up going to a junior college in Kansas, Fort Scott. And he did very, very well there. And I sent Monty out to watch him play, and Monty came back and liked him, and he's a center fielder potentially. So he was our first recruit, and it was out of the junior college ranks. And then we ended up, I'm trying to think what the order was of the other 3. The next one was Caleb Hoover, who was also in the junior college ranks. He might have even been before Jameson. I can't remember the exact timing of it. But this is a really great story. His name is Caleb Hoover. So Caleb's father played in the NFL. His brother is the starting quarterback for TCU, Josh Hoover. And Caleb went to Oklahoma State this past fall. And he went to Oklahoma State, and he was just stacked up behind 2 or 3 other left-handed hitting, his kind of mold, okay? Power hitting, left-handed hitter, first baseman, DH, potentially an outfielder. So he knew he wasn't going to get the chance to play this year at Oklahoma State, so he transferred after the fall and went to Grayson College outside of Dallas. And boy, did he have a great spring. He were about 2/3 of the way through the season. He had 16 home runs. In fact, he and Dawson Harmon, who was a kid that we recruited out of Florida, they were number 1 and 2 in the home runs race in the nation. And we'd already had Dawson Harmon committed, and then we got Hoover committed. So they were kind of in a race for the nation's lead, and then Hoover got hit by a pitch and broke his hand. And so he had to have surgery, and so he missed the last month of the junior college season. But one of the things we recruited him was with the idea of trying to make him an outfielder. And I don't know what it's going to look like. I haven't worked with him yet, obviously. So we'll see if he can become a left fielder or not. If not, he's a DH and potentially a first baseman. Of course, we got a pretty good first baseman returning. So I'm hoping he can play the outfield. At worst, I think he's a DH, but he's a power-hitting left-handed guy. So then after recruiting those first 2 guys, we really did feel like we needed let me just remember what the order was again. We had Jameson and we had Hoover. And then our attention shifted to, we got to make sure we have a legitimate center fielder guy. And all of a sudden one day, it popped up on the transfer portal. The kid from Wofford, Tyler Bach, went into the portal. And I remember I was on the road. I was in an airport, and Monty called me and told me that this kid had just popped up into the transfer portal. So we did a little quick research on this kid, and Chris Gordon is our director of player development. And I don't know how, I didn't even know they had these stats in college. But Chris tells me that Tyler Bach was 4th in the nation in runs saved as a center fielder. So that right away told us, hey, we got a kid that can cover the outfield out there. And actually, as another left-handed hitter, he was different from the mold of the first guys that we had recruited, which was our emphasis was on power hitters. And so he was more of a bat handler, left-handed hitter, but I watched video of him, and he was hitting balls from the left field line to the right field line and everything in between. Didn't strike out a lot, stole some bases. So he was more of a prototypical center fielder that can go get the ball and create havoc, can bunt for hits, do those kinds of things. So we landed him. How many outfielders is that now? Let's see. That's 3, right? And then who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting one. Wait a second. Hoover, Jameson, Bach. Oh, and then Ethan Lazama went onto the board. And Ethan is an interesting story. He's from Guam. So these recruiting calls have been unique with him. The first thing I do is Google, what time is it in Guam? So I think I've woken him up a couple of times during the course of the summer. But Ethan played at Western Kentucky, and Western Kentucky had a really great team this year. They won well over 40 games. Ethan was the MVP of the conference tournament. I think he hit, I can't remember if he hit 2 or 3 home runs in the conference tournament, but he had a walk-off hit in the conference tournament. Big, strong left-handed hitter. Looks athletic, been a right fielder. So anyway, we brought him in. He fell in love with South Carolina, so we got him. Well, now we have 4 outfielders, but they're all left-handed hitters, so we've kind of gone overboard with the left-handed hitters. And a kid came on the board from the University of Louisiana Lafayette, big, strong, right-handed power hitter by the name of Luke Uhas. It's spelled Y-U-A-S-Z. And he's had some injury problems, so his numbers aren't as great as you would expect. But we got nothing but positive reports from the scouts in that area and others. Watched a lot of video on him. He's a good-looking athlete for a big guy, and he's got power. But he had an issue with a hamate bone this year, so he missed some time this year with that broken hand. So we ended up with 5 outfielders, and I think that 4 left-handed hitters, 1 true center fielder, another guy that potentially could be a center fielder, and Jameson, and the rest. So that's our outfield core.
And Paul, will you guys abide by the 34-man roster limit, and is everybody on full scholarship?
Okay, so yeah, that's it's a little bit difficult to answer that. Okay. I'm not going to be able to say, are they all on full scholarship, because then I'd be giving some information out that I don't think we're supposed to say about individual players' financial situations. We have 34 on the roster right now. The breakdown is 17 pitchers and 17 position players. There's a thing, I don't know if you all have read about this designated student athlete. Do you all know what I'm talking about? So what happened was there was this single judge out in Oakland. Basically, she had the world of college athletics in the palm of her hands. She was either going to approve the settlement. Everybody thinks the House versus NCAA was like the House of Representatives. It's actually a athlete by the name of House. I think he was a swimmer from like 10 years ago or something that sued the NCAA for not having been able to make money on his name, image, and likeness, and that's how this whole thing got started. So the attorneys for both sides had come to an agreement. I think it was like a $2.3 billion agreement or something that covered a lot of areas. But anyway, the final approval was supposed to be done on April the 7th. Well, it didn't get it finally approved until June the 3rd. And that created a lot of havoc for people, believe me. And what a lot of schools were doing were they were paying their athletes in advance of the settlement. And if they had a contract, they could pay that athlete before July 1st, and basically it wouldn't go on the books for this coming year. So the reason that the settlement was not approved was because she allowed people to come into her courtroom and speak for or against this agreement. And there were a lot of student athletes that went in front of her and said, because of the roster limits, I'm going to lose my spot on the roster at my school. And I'm not even a scholarshiped athlete. I just want to participate. So she felt very much compassion for them. And so they went back. She sent the lawyers back to come up to a new agreement. And that's why there was such a long delay. Well, somehow they came up to this agreement that if you had told an athlete that they were going to lose their spot on the roster because of the 34-man roster, that you could designate that student athlete as somebody that would have lost their spot, and then they'd be grandfathered in on the roster. And so I think what's happening is a lot of schools are finding it as a loophole, and many schools have designated their entire freshman class, which obviously they didn't tell everybody, but they're saying they did. So what that does is it allows you to go beyond the 34-man roster if you would like. We only have 3 designated student athletes. So technically, we could go to 37 if we want to, okay? But I don't anticipate that we'll go. I don't know. We may. One of our freshmen, Brandon Cromer, actually had Tommy John surgery, and so he's going to have a medical red shirt this year. So he would not have counted against the 34 because of that. Now it's moot, as long as we don't go beyond 37. Like I said, we still want to add a pitcher, perhaps 2. We have another pitcher that we've signed that is developed some arm issues during the course of this summer, and we're trying to figure out whether or not he's actually going to be available or not this year, or whether it's bad. So we're still just a little bit in flux, but we decided to have this press conference because I thought I'd be able to give you our final roster today. But there's just a little bit of potential movement in there.
You have until December to finalize everything.
Yeah, you have until December to have. No. Actually, no. This excuse me. Back when it was 34, you had till December 1st. But now, because of these designated student athletes, that can be throughout the year. And in fact, those student athletes keep that designation throughout their entire career. So if someone was to go into the transfer portal and had the designation of student, this is just a 1-year thing that this is happening, but that designation will stay for them with their career. So if they were to go in the transfer portal in a future year, they become attractive to another school because they can go beyond the 34-man roster with those kids. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. Just the unending eligibility.
Oh, it's been crazy.
Just your thoughts on the way you guys have been able to rebuild the pitching staff. I can imagine it was probably a long, busy process of putting that together. Just how do you feel now about that group of pitchers you have coming in?
Very relieved after the draft, because we sat on pins and needles worried about a few of those guys. A couple of them were not draft eligible, so we didn't have, like Alex Philpott from Florida is not eligible for the draft, so we didn't have to worry about him. But there were others that we worried quite a bit about. For example, I don't know if you all watched the USC versus Clemson game in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Did you see that little pitcher he's not so little, but did you see that pitcher for USC? He pitched so great against Clemson. His name is Amp Phillips. Actually, his name is Ashton Michael Phillips, so that's how they came up with AMP. It's his initials. But everybody calls him AMP, except for his mother. Calls him Ashton. But to be honest with you, I was watching that game, and I was like, man, see, now that's the kind of pitcher I would like to have. Just a really gutty competitor, threw strikes. He had good stuff. I think he was up to 94 miles an hour with most of his fastballs. Had a really good curveball. He was not a show-off on the mound, but he pitched with a lot of emotion. Well, lo and behold, the kid ends up going into the transfer portal. So I was like, we're going after that kid. And fortunately, we were able to land him. And he turned down a lot of money to stay in school. So we had to sweat that one out. We had to... Alex Valentin Alex was not eligible for the draft. Alex is a kid from Texas State. Bradley Hodges, a left-handed pitcher from Virginia, was one that we really sweated out as well. Bradley's actually already graduated from Virginia. He graduated in 3 years, and so he'll be in graduate school here. But his story is a little bit unique as well. He, as a freshman at Virginia, they went to the World Series, so they had an outstanding team, and he was used out of the bullpen exclusively, pitched in, I think, 19 games, and did well. He came back his sophomore year and was a front runner to be in the weekend rotation, started one game and had to have Tommy John surgery. So he missed his whole second year there. And then when he came back this year, coming back after 12 months for a pitcher is very tight. And so they had to bring him along slowly throughout the course of the year. And so, that he was on a strict pitch count for most of the year. And then eventually, they kind of let him go within reason. And he ended up being in the weekend rotation. And the third to last weekend of the season at Georgia Tech, a very good hitting team, he went 7 innings with 9 strikeouts on 2 hits. So that was kind of his coming out party. But then he did not pitch well the last 2 weekends of the season. And a lot of people attributed that to arm fatigue, because he was, just coming back. And then, of course, their coach left to go become the coach at Mississippi State. So he went into the transfer portal. And he's been working all summer down in South Florida with the Cressy group, and in terms of his just building up strength and rehab and so forth. And there's been a good working relationship between our staff and their staff down there to do what's best for this kid. So we were. I was a little bit worried that somebody would see that one outing against Georgia Tech and pop the kid and give him the money that he would have taken to sign, but he ended up not signing. So we're excited about having him. Josh Gunther is a kid that pitched for Wake Forest this past year, did a lot of great things, went up to the Cape, so a lot of work. Elijah Foster, you might remember this name, he pitched for Sacred Heart against us this year. And I remember when he went out to the mound, and I was over in the other dugout saying to myself, wow, this kid's got a good arm. He had a very explosive fastball. He was like 96, 97. It was Sacred Heart. But his defense behind him that day, I don't know if you all remember this, but it was very porous. So it forced him to throw a lot of extra pitches, and then he started to have some command issues, and he didn't pitch long in the game, but we remembered him. And when he went in the portal, we went after him, and we were able to get him. I mentioned Amp Phillips. I think Amp's going to do some good stuff. So here was the first kid that we got out of the transfer portal. Now, when you see his name spelled Gregoire, all right, for $1, who can pronounce it?
Greg Wong.
Who got that?
So I butchered it too.
Okay.
I thought it was Greg.
Darn it.
And then I heard someone, I was watching back highlights of him.
I'll pay you later.
The broadcaster saying Greg Wong.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
So it looks like if you look at it, most of us would say Gregoire, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he's Italian. But he's actually French, okay? So you're going to love this story. So we're in Hoover before our game against who we play? Florida. I'm trying to forget it. I don't remember if it was the morning of the Florida game or the day before the Florida game, but Terry and I had had breakfast, and the transfer portal hadn't opened yet. But there's a rule that if you are a senior or if your coach is not coming back, you can enter the transfer portal early. And this happened in 2 cases of 2 of the kids that we got. This is when I was talking about us having an early start. So Terry calls this kid, Josh Gregoire, because he sees he's going in the portal. He talks to him, and then he comes running in and finds me, and he says, hey, you got to call this kid right away. He said he's at Louisiana Monroe, but he's packing up his apartment, and he's driving back to his home. His home is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay? So I said, no kidding. He goes, there's more to it. He says that he was going to be your next door neighbor. And I said, wait a minute. I sold my first house in Baton Rouge, and it was a cul-de-sac with 10 lots, and there were 9 houses and 1 empty lot, which was right next door to my house. As we're trying to sell our house, all of a sudden, all these trucks come pulling into the cul-de-sac. They're building a house right next door, and I'm thinking it's going to hurt us being able to sell our house, right? Because we had built a home in another part of Baton Rouge, and we were moving in there. Turns out it's Josh Gregoire's family building that house right next door to where our first home was in Baton Rouge. So I got on the phone with him, and we had a nice conversation, and he was saying some very flattering things about watching the teams that I coached at LSU for all those years while he was growing up, and he always dreamed of playing for me. Of course, he was thinking I was going to be the coach at LSU by the time he was ready to go to college. But he ended up, not being a great prospect out of high school, and he ended up going to a junior college, LSU Eunice, a really great program. And after he was there, he had some arm issues, and so he wasn't highly recruited coming out of the junior college, and he ended up going to Louisiana Monroe as a walk-on. Well, he got healthy. He changed his repertoire of pitches a little bit, and he became their closer. And they didn't have a great team this year, but he saved like 7 games. I'm talking about a kid that throws like in the mid-90s and has an unbelievable split-finger fastball as well. And he was the best arm in the portal at that time. And so we jumped on it, and I'm talking to him on the phone while he's driving from Monroe back to Baton Rouge. And I said, well, is your dream to go to LSU? And that's when he told me, it always had been, because he had been watching the teams that I was coaching all those years. So he went that afternoon for a visit with the coaches at LSU. And the next day I called him and I said, well, how was your visit? And he said, well, it really wasn't what I was hoping it would be. So I said, well, I know a school that would really love to have you. And so we brought him to Columbia the next day, and we sat there and visited, and he said, he always dreamed of playing for me, and he said, I didn't expect it to be in garnet and black, but I want to play for you. And so he committed to us, and he's going to be a good one. And you just got to remember how to pronounce his last name, but that's the biggest challenge. He's going to be a good pitcher for us. The most recent pitching recruit, Jack, was Hudson Lee. He's a left-hander out of Clemson. He had also been at Wake Forest. And I guess that's all the pitchers. Am I forgetting anybody? Junior college pitcher Logan Prisco pitched at Flow Dart. He went 11-2 this year. And listen, I have to tell you this. I was going to go down the order of the freshman, junior college kids, and then transfer portal guys, but I started taking your questions. So we have a unique situation. We recruited 2 infielders, junior college infielders. Both of them played third base for their teams, and both of them were first-team junior college All-Americans. So one of them is Patrick Evans from Florence Darlington Tech, and I think Patrick is just a really great ball player, all-around player, and he could probably play anywhere on the infield. We'll line him up at third base against Dawson Harmon, who is the other one, and we'll see who can handle the defense there. And if one of them is superior to the other, then we'll start looking at the other one at another position, somewhere on the field. But I'm excited about having Patrick Evans. He's in summer school here with us already. He could have potentially been drafted yesterday, but also set a number high enough that he wouldn't get it so that he would come to school. And I could say the same thing about Dawson Harmon. Dawson Harmon, it was the Florida Junior College Player of the Year. Hit 24 home runs. So, power was a big focus for our recruiting class. He hit 24 home runs. I think we satisfied that with him, as well as Caleb Hoover and some of the other guys. Harmon was also, like I said, first-team All-American. So that'll be interesting competition there. I mentioned Jack Reynolds already. Jack Reynolds is an infielder who started at Hannah High School. At Flora High School. Excuse me. I got my little cheat notes here. Jack started at AC Flora and then transferred to P27. And then he was at Gulf Coast Community College. And again, Monty went out. They sent Monty out to see him. Monty liked him. We committed him. And then he ended up having an injury and missing the rest of the season. So he only played 17 games at Gulf Coast Community College. But he's got a lot of versatility. He could play anywhere on the infield. And then the freshmen, I don't think I even mentioned the two freshmen that are healthy. Will Craddock is a kid I'm really excited about. He's one from T.J. Hannah High School. He ended up having he had 8 or 9 home runs this year for their school. He's a good-looking athlete, tall, going to grow into his body, and he could be a real force before he's done here. He was a little put back because he had an arm injury when he was younger and had surgery, and then that surgery was starting to bother him a little bit. So they had to go in and do just a little minor cleanup there. But it kept him from being able to throw at full strength until a certain point of the season. He was actually a shortstop. And by that point, their team was doing real well. Somebody else was playing shortstop. They had put Will at first base because it was less throwing. I think his arm's 100% now, so I'll be interested to see what he looks like on the left side of the infield as well. But he ended up hitting and had a great year, but played mostly at first base, although he's much more versatile than just a first baseman. So we'll just see how that plays out. And then we signed a left-handed pitcher. We did not. He was recruited by the previous coaching staff, but he stayed with us, a kid by the name of Patrick Dudley. He's from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and he actually turned down quite a bit of money yesterday or a couple days ago in the draft. And I'm real excited about the future with Patrick Dudley and see what kind of role that he can have on our team. So I think I've gone over everybody except for the catching situation, haven't I? Scobby, Sutter, Harmon, Evans. Oh, Eric Parker was a kid at Georgia, was drafted out of high school 2 years ago, I think in the 14th or 15th round, went to Georgia and just didn't get an opportunity to play. They went with all the older guys. But he went away this summer to the Northwoods League. He had about 50 or 60 appearances at the plate, hit over 300. Good-looking player. Excited about seeing what he can do. Reynolds, Craddock. We all know about Bo Hollins. I talked about all the outfielders. So really that just brings us to the catching situation. And I got to tell you that the biggest concern I had was Reese Moore. Reese is a kid that we signed out of Iowa, and he actually was first team All Big Ten this past year, but not as strictly a catcher, as a utility player. He caught some, didn't catch a lot, DH'd a lot, and then could play the outfield as well. But he's a really good-looking left-handed hitter. He's got some pop, and he's a really great kid. I really enjoyed going to meet him in Des Moines, Iowa. How many of you in this room have wrestled in front of 13,000 people? He did it 2 years in a row in the semifinals of the state championship. Now, he obviously didn't win it, or I would have told you he was a state champion. But that's pretty cool to have wrestled in front of 13,000 people. But wrestling is huge in the state of Iowa. Dan Gable and all those great wrestlers they've had through the years. He also was a middle linebacker in football. So I'm going to guess this kid's got some toughness to him, okay? So anyway, I sweated out the draft with him, but he's come to school. Obviously, we have Gavin back, and Talmadge LaCroix is coming back for his 5th year. If Talmadge had played in one more game this spring, he would not have met the qualifications for a medical red shirt. And I didn't even know it at the time. He just got hurt, and he was going to miss the rest of the season. I didn't even know he'd want to come back, because all those boys were leaving, through graduation or whatever. And but we sat down and had a good heart-to-heart talk, and he's totally re-motivated, and he's been in the weight room every day. He's really been looking good. The players are already starting to call him Cap as the captain of the team, and he's getting a big kick out of that. Well, then this is what I was going to tell you about the draft day. He walks into my office. They're in about the 8th round. The thought never even crossed my mind that he would sign professionally after only playing in 17 games this year. And he walked in and he told me that he was getting calls about whether or not he would sign or not. And, in the draft, the first 10 rounds, they have a pool of money. And what some teams do is in the 8th, 9th, 10th rounds, they'll sign a senior for $20,000 or something and call it a cost saver. And then they could use the money in their pool for other big prospects, and especially after the 10th round. So anyway, he started getting calls about the possibility of signing. I almost had a heart attack when he told me that. I didn't wake up that morning thinking that was going to be something I was going to have to deal with. And my initial reaction to it was, boy, Talmadge, that's awesome for you, a chance to play professional baseball. But he thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and he called me back and he said, Coach, I'm coming back to school. I love South Carolina. I want to be the leader of this team. I want to get us back on track the way that we're supposed to be. I want to be a part of that, and I want to set the tone for the team. And it literally brought tears to my eyes because the kid was so dedicated to being here and being a part of it, and getting us going the way we're supposed to be again next year, getting this program back on track. And it would have been hard without him, but with him, it just gives me a great deal of confidence. So, and then we ended up, we about a week ago, we knew we were going to lose Noah Franklin to the draft. So we found this kid that had just graduated from Presbyterian, Jake Randolph, excuse me. And Jake has graduated in 3 years from Presbyterian, but they didn't have any graduate school programs, so he had to go into the portal. He actually didn't catch much because he had injured himself in his freshman year when he went into home plate sliding head first, and of course he screwed up his shoulder. And so I told him I'd recruit him if he promised me he'd never slide head first again. So he made that promise to me, and I think he's making a really good recovery. But he also did some really great things with the bat for Presbyterian. He's one of their best hitters, if not their best hitter. So that kind of rounds out, I think, our roster. Does anybody else have any questions about it?
Any other questions for Coach? Jeff?
One more on the pitching staff. Just a broader question, not anyone specific, but there are a few guys you guys have brought in, maybe have a little bit of work to do in terms of maybe their ERA was high, maybe the walks were a little bit up. What are the keys for you, Terry, everyone involved with the pitching staff in developing them to help them reach their ceiling of where you guys think they can be?
Well, first of all, we focused on stuff. We needed to get some harder throwers and guys with, good breaking balls and things like that. So, Jack, I don't know who you're specifically talking about there. Maybe a guy like Elijah Foster, but he's got a great arm, and his off-speed pitches are pretty good too. He's just got to learn to command them a little bit. Sometimes that just comes with experience and age. Terry and Chris Gordon working together with them, they're going to work really hard with those guys all fall and, do the things that are necessary. We have all the technology. We have everything available to us to help these kids develop into the very best pitchers that they can be. And obviously pitching was a weakness for us last year. The guys that are back with us we think are going to contribute in a big way. We spoke about Riley Goodman. I haven't talked about Jake McCoy at all, but Jake was a guy that had control problems last year. Let's not hide that fact, right? His first start in the Cape this summer, he went 4 innings, he struck out 10 and walked 0. His next start, he went 4 innings, he struck out 7, he walked 1. His third start was not quite as dominating as the first two. The first two made him the Cape Cod League Pitcher of the Week. The third start, they got a few hits off him. There's no question that Jake's got to continue to develop his changeup to become the best all-around pitcher that he can be. But he's showing what he's capable of being. And my feeling is that this third year is going to be magical for him. Listen, I had a pitcher back at Notre Dame, just to use as an example, by the name of Brad Lidge. I don't know if all of you remember that name. Brad Lidge threw 5 innings his freshman year. His sophomore year, he threw 45 innings. And then his junior year, he was the Big East Pitcher of the Year, a first-round draft choice, ended up spending 12 years or more in the big leagues and closed out 48 games for the Phillies when they won the World Championship. I mean, sometimes it just takes guys time to get the feel and the confidence and everything for what it takes to have really good command. And obviously the pitching coach is a big part of that. The director of player development with all the metrics and so forth, that can contribute into it as well. But sometimes it just takes time for kids. One of the greatest left-handed pitchers of all time, Sandy Koufax, didn't develop good command until he was 26 years old. I mean, everybody's different. But we have a plan, and we're working with them. We'll be working with them when we're allowed to start working with them. But what we did was, hey, look, I think Amp Phillips is a proven winner. I think that Josh Gregoire is a proven winner. Alex Valentin is a proven winner. Bradley Hodges is a proven winner. They've shown they can do it. Now it's just a matter of them doing it consistently, and I think we're going to have a good pitching staff. We mentioned Riley Goodman. Brandon Stone is getting himself in the best shape of his life, and he's going to throw harder, and he showed what he's capable of doing against Ole Miss this past year. You just got to do it more consistently. We know what Parker Marlott is. Hey, Zach Russell and Cooper Parks have good arms, and now it's time for those guys to make a leap forward. And if they can do it, we got something special there too. So, looking forward to working with these guys. Think it's gonna be a fun year, and can't wait to get started. I guess I should mention before we shut it down, opening day is February 13th this year. I'm not really allowed to release our schedule yet until we get contracts, but we've been in discussions with Northern Kentucky. It's about the possibility of them being the opening weekend series. As far as the fall goes, we'll start working right away with individual small groups. I have changed the plan for the first time ever in my coaching career. I'm going to do it a little different this fall. In the past, what I've always done is, once we started practice with the full group, is work on fundamentals, but scrimmage every day for at least a little bit, whether it's 3 to 5 innings, whatever, okay? This year we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to start later with our games. Our first scrimmage game is not going to be until October 19th, so that we're going to have a lot more side sessions so that Terry and Chris can work with the pitchers on the side sessions more and also build them up so that when we start the scrimmages, on the days we do scrimmage, we're going to hopefully play 9 innings. But remember, we have a 4-hour time limit of practice every day. So when we're going to scrimmage less times, we're going to do it 3 days a week. Typically, we're going to do it on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursdays, okay? And try to play 9 innings and have 6 pitchers throw each day, 3 for each team, and have them throw 3-inning outings rather than a 1-inning outing. You know, when you throw 1 inning, you can fool them for an inning. You know, pop up and 2 ground outs, and you have a 10-pitch inning, whatever, which is wonderful. But when you're pitched 3 innings, it's going to force the pitchers to use their entire repertoire of pitches. They can show if they can dominate an inning. They can show if they get in a jam that they can pitch out of the inning, and they might have to face some hitters more than one time. So that's going to give us more of a gauge of who can be starting pitchers for us, and then determine what roles each kid might fit best in. So we're going to start our scrimmage games later, not have as many, but have them in longer duration. So they should still have the same amount of at-bats, same amount of innings each pitcher will throw in the fall, but just make it more game realistic. We do have 2 games scheduled in the fall. We're going to play on November 2nd here at home on a Sunday against North Carolina Charlotte, who is coached by Rob Woodard, who happens to be the husband of our wonderful softball coach. And on Thursday, November 6th, that same week, we're going to go play at College of Charleston again. Not sure if we're going to play at which ballpark we're going to play or what time we're going to start or how many innings we're going to play. But we're going to play those games in, and then we'll still have 2 more weeks of scrimmage games at home. We're going to go right up until Thanksgiving break. And that's another little change that we're going to make this year.
Any other questions, Coach?
Could you give those dates again? I think you said November 6th twice.
November 2nd. November 2nd, Sunday, and then November 6th, Thursday. No, that's okay. Sometimes I talk too close to the mic, and sometimes I'm too far away.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Okay, everybody. Good to be with y'all.